Prudent Scholars in association with Goa Headmasters Association.
Hello everyone. So in the last session we have completed regarding the heterotrophic nutrition. In today's session we are going to cover respiration. As we know, respiration is the process in which energy is released from the food that is absorbed. In human beings, during respiration, what happens? I am going to write in the form of equation. So during the process of respiration, glucose, which is already present in our cells, that glucose reacts with the oxygen. And when glucose reacts with oxygen, water is produced, carbon dioxide is produced, and energy is released. This is what happens in our cells, in human beings. So, glucose C6H12O6, it reacts with oxygen, and when glucose reacts with oxygen, water is formed, carbon dioxide is produced, and energy is released. So this equation represents respiration. Now we are going to learn what exactly happens of glucose. Glucose कित जाता सुरवातेक. That we are going to learn. So during the process of respiration, the first step that takes place is breakdown of glucose, and glucose breaks down into one compound called as the pyruvate, and this takes place in one part of our cell, that is cytoplasm. So during the process of respiration, glucose gets broken down into pyruvate. This takes place in cytoplasm or cytoplasm. Glucose, this is a 6-carbon molecule. Whereas pyruvate, this is 3-carbon molecule. 3 atoms of carbon are present in this compound. And this conversion of glucose into pyruvate takes place in cytoplasm. This is one of the part of the cell. Formula of glucose, as we already know, C6H12O6. Formula of pyruvate, C3H3O3. I repeat, formula of pyruvate is C3H3O3. Now, so this is the first step that takes place during the process of respiration. This equation which I have written, this reaction or this equation represents respiration which takes place in human beings. Now, further, pyruvate gets broken down into new substances. Pyruvate gets converted into new substances. In the presence of oxygen, when oxygen is present, pyruvate reacts with that oxygen and we get compounds like water, carbon dioxide, and energy is released. This takes place in human beings, but in which part of the cell this takes place. This takes place in one of the cell organelles which is present in cell known as the mitochondria. So, this takes place in mitochondria, and we have learnt in 9th standard that mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cells. In the absence of oxygen, now this is in the presence of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen, pyruvate gets converted into compounds like ethanol, carbon dioxide will be produced, and here also energy will be released. So, conversion of pyruvate in the absence of oxygen into ethanol, carbon dioxide and release of energy, this takes place in yeast. Yeast, as we learnt in the one of the sessions, that yeast is an example of fungi. So, pyruvate gets converted into ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy is released, and this takes place in the absence of oxygen. So, this conversion of pyruvate into water, carbon dioxide and release of energy in the presence of oxygen, we call this as aerobic respiration. So, aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen, and the conversion of pyruvate into ethanol, carbon dioxide and release of energy in the absence of oxygen, we call this respiration as anaerobic respiration. So, we have learned two things now, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So, an aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in yeast, aerobic respiration takes place in mitochondria. Next, so we have seen what happens to the pyruvate in the presence of oxygen and what happens to the pyruvate in the absence of oxygen. When there is lack of oxygen, when there is less supply of oxygen, at that time this pyruvate gets converted into lactic acid and energy will be released. Lactic acid is again 3-carbon molecule. I repeat, lactic acid is a 3-carbon molecule. As we have seen, pyruvate, it is 3-carbon molecule, but this is the formula of pyruvate, C3H3O3. So, we have seen what happens to the pyruvate in the presence of oxygen, what happens to the pyruvate in the absence of oxygen. Now, when there is lack of oxygen, pyruvate gets converted into lactic acid and energy will be released. Lactic acid, it is a 3-carbon molecule and its formula is C3H6O3. Again we can see 3-carbon molecule, 3 atoms of carbon are present. Here also this pyruvate is also 3-carbon molecule, 3 atoms of carbon are present. Glucose is 6-carbon molecule, 6 atoms of carbon are present. And this conversion of pyruvate into lactic acid and the energy that is released here, this takes place in muscle cells. Few minutes back I told you that glucose gets converted into pyruvate, and when glucose gets converted into pyruvate, energy is also released in this case. So, pyruvate and energy will be released. So, when glucose gets converted into pyruvate, at that time energy is also released. Now, so we were learning regarding the conversion of pyruvate into lactic acid and energy is released. This takes place when there is lack of oxygen. This happens sometimes if suddenly if someone, those who are observing this, some of you might be a very good athlete. So, sometimes when we run very quickly within short time, in our muscles cramps are developed, and those cramps are developed because of the production of lactic acid. So, production of lactic acid takes place in our muscle cells when there is lack of oxygen. Few minutes back we learned regarding aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. If we compare the energy produced in this case and in this case, energy produced in aerobic respiration is more as compared to the energy that is released during anaerobic respiration. So, energy released is less or energy produced is less in anaerobic respiration, and in aerobic respiration energy produced is more. Now, why more energy is produced? Because this process takes place in the presence of oxygen, and in this case energy produced is less because this process takes place in the absence of oxygen. So, this is regarding the conversion of glucose into pyruvate, aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration, yeast. Yes, just now we have seen what happens to the glucose during the process of respiration. So, this is the image which is taken from our textbook, and just now I have explained this. So, first glucose gets converted into pyruvate and energy is released. This takes place in cytoplasm. Then in the presence of oxygen we get these products. In the absence of oxygen, these are the products that are formed in yeast. Okay. So, everything is explained regarding this. We will move on to the next part. So, next part is related to the activity. So, what we have to do? We have to make use of the two test tubes. I repeat, we have to make use of the two test tubes. In both the test tubes, we have to pour lime water. Now, in one of the lessons, we have learned that lime water is nothing but aqueous solution of calcium hydroxide, and formula of calcium hydroxide is CaOH2. The common name of this compound calcium hydroxide is slaked lime. So, calcium hydroxide along with water, I will say aqueous solution of calcium hydroxide. So, calcium hydroxide with water we will get lime water. So, we have to make use of the lime water, as we can see here, lime water. So, two test tubes are taken, and in one of the test tubes we have to introduce air. So, in the first test tube, let us consider this as A, test tube 1 as A, another test tube as B. Okay. So, we have to make use of the pichkari, which you all must have used during Holi. So, we have to make use of the pichkari. We have to first pull the piston, and we have to, when we pull the piston, air will enter in the pichkari, and now we can change the direction, and then we can press the piston. So, once we press the piston, while pressing the piston, the other end of the pichkari must be in the lime water. In another test tube, we have to blow air, okay, with the help of the tube. We must do this simultaneously. So, we have to take help of one more person here, okay, if we are using this glass tube. And what we are going to observe is, in both the test tubes, this lime water will turn milky, and lime water turns milky because of the carbon dioxide gas. We have learned this. So, carbon dioxide gas turns lime water milky. But in the first test tube, more time will be taken to turn this lime water milky, and in the second test tube, that is test tube B, lime water will get converted into, or lime water will turn milky quickly as compared to lime water in test tube A. So, when we blow air, more carbon dioxide is given out, keep in mind, and here in this case less carbon dioxide enters in the lime water. So, we have seen respiration, we have to learn more things. So, during the process of respiration, especially in human beings, we require oxygen, and we have to take in oxygen from the air. So, with the help of nostrils we take in oxygen. When oxygen is taken in, there is passage, and in that passage there are hairs. So, what these hairs do? They also perform very important function, they filter the air. I repeat, these hairs filters the air which is present in the nostrils. Here the hairs which are present here, they will filter the air. At the same time, in the nostrils there is mucus. That mucus will also filter the air. So, dirt particles and all will stick to the mucus and air will enter here. So, as air enters, we call this part as trachea. This trachea consists of rings of cartilage, and we can see here rings of cartilage. Still I will show you one more image. Yes, we can see here trachea consists of rings of cartilage, and these rings of cartilage, this makes sure that the air passage does not collapse. Okay. So, rings of cartilage performs again very important function. It makes sure, it ensures that the air passage does not collapse. Now, once the air enters here, air enters in the lungs. When it enters in the lungs, the passage of air becomes small, okay, and it will become smaller and smaller. Finally, the passage terminates at one part in the lungs, and that part looks like balloon. So, balloon like structures present in the lungs, we call these balloon like structures as alveoli. So, this alveoli provides the surface area for exchange of gases. In the last session we have learnt that villi in small intestine provides the surface area for absorption of digested food. Here this alveoli provides the surface area for exchange of gases. So, this alveoli provides the surface area for exchange of gases. They are richly supplied with blood vessels. So, there is one part called as the diaphragm which is muscular, and this plays again very important role in taking air in. So, let us understand what happens when or in what way air is taken in. So, when we want to take in air, what happens? We already know these are nothing but ribs. Okay. So, when we want to take in air, we lift our ribs. Okay. You can also try simultaneously at home. Okay. Yes, take in air. So, when we want to take in air, at that time we lift our ribs. This diaphragm which we can see, I said this plays very important role. This diaphragm become flat And there is one more part called as the chest cavity. So, this chest cavity becomes larger. And due to this, the air is sucked in. Due to this, air is taken in. So, what is the mechanism to take in air? We lift our ribs, diaphragm becomes flat and chest cavity becomes larger, and due to this, air is taken in. So, this fills the alveoli. Now, we must have observed, some of you must be having the aquarium at home, and you must have observed the fishes which are present, or fish which are present in that aquarium. So, if we observe carefully, the rate of breathing in case of fishes, it is faster as compared to the rate of breathing in case of terrestrial animals, which are found on land. We call such animals as terrestrial animals. If we compare rate of breathing in fishes and rate of breathing in organism or in animals like any terrestrial animals you consider, rate of breathing in case of fishes, it is faster as compared to the rate of breathing in case of terrestrial animals. Now, what is the reason behind this? We already know that fishes take in dissolved oxygen present in the water, and the amount of dissolved oxygen present in water is less as compared to the amount of oxygen present in air. So, in this air, amount of oxygen is more as compared to the amount of dissolved oxygen in water. Okay. That is why breathing rate in case of fishes, it is faster. Now, why breathing rate in case of fishes is faster? We already know the reason. The amount of dissolved oxygen present in water is less. Okay. And breathing rate in case of terrestrial animals, it is slow, because there is enough oxygen present in air. Okay. Lot of oxygen is present in air, amount of oxygen present in air is more. When we compare rate of breathing in case of fishes in water and rate of breathing in case of animals which are found on land. Okay. So, this is regarding the breathing rate or rate of breathing. Coming back to alveoli, I repeat, coming back to alveoli. So, as we already know, alveoli, they provide the surface area for exchange of gases. Now, in the lungs, there is always some extra volume of air which remains, or residual volume of air remains in the lungs. Now, why that residual volume of air remains in the lungs? So that there is enough time for exchange of gases. So, exchange of gases takes place. We take in oxygen, we give out carbon dioxide. So, this happens in lungs, and who provides the surface area? Alveoli. Okay, these are the once again balloon like structures present in the lungs. Yes, this is for your information. We have to add one part, okay, which I missed regarding the respiration with respect to this particular part. Yes, I am going to start. So, we have seen respiration, and in case of human beings, the energy that is produced, this energy is utilized to make a molecule called as ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is used to fuel all the activities in our body. So, if we want to perform any activity, we have to take or we have to make use of the ATP. I repeat, the energy that is produced during the aerobic respiration, this energy is utilized to make a molecule or to synthesize a molecule called as ATP, meaning adenosine triphosphate. which is used to fuel all the activities in our body, or which is used to fuel all the activities in our cell. Yes. So, here we have learned that alveoli, this provides the surface area for absorption. So, oxygen is taken in. Once oxygen is taken in, alveoli is richly supplied with blood vessels. So, this oxygen has to be transported to the heart, and from the heart it has to be transported to various parts in our body. So, this work is done by blood. So, blood is an example of tissue. Okay. So, from lungs, alveoli is balloon like structure, or they are balloon like structures present in the lungs. So, from lungs to the heart, the oxygen is transported by blood vessels. So, blood vessels, they carry blood, and blood has its own function. Blood transport food, oxygen and waste material, and in blood there is fluid medium known as the plasma. In news channel and all, you must have heard many times regarding this plasma. So, blood consists of fluid medium called as the plasma, in which cells are suspended. So, what blood consists of? So, blood also consists of white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets. Okay. So, as I said just now, that blood consists of fluid medium called as the plasma, in which cells are suspended. Now, from alveoli, the blood vessel that carry blood to the heart is pulmonary vein. I repeat. So, pulmonary vein is the blood vessel that carry oxygenated blood from lungs to heart, and as we all know, heart is the pumping organ present in our body. Now, coming back to the blood, as I said earlier that blood transport oxygen, it also transport food, it also transport waste materials in our body. Blood consists of plasma. Plasma also has its own function. Plasma transport food, it transport nitrogenous waste, it also transport carbon dioxide in dissolved form. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water as compared to oxygen. So, carbon dioxide is transported in dissolved form. But in our body, in blood, we already know the color of blood is red, and this is because of the red pigment called as the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin binds the oxygen. So, in blood, hemoglobin is already present. When oxygen is taken in, hemoglobin binds the oxygen and oxygen is transported in our body. So, in our body we have the pumping organ, which is heart. Now, we are going to study regarding the transportation system. Before starting with the transportation system, let us recall what we have covered regarding the respiration. So, in this session, we have covered regarding aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration. We have learnt that during the process of respiration, the first step that takes place is breakdown of glucose, and glucose gets converted into pyruvate, and from the pyruvate we get various products, and formation of products are based on oxygen. When there is presence of oxygen, when there is lack of oxygen, and when there is absence of oxygen, what happens? Then we have learnt regarding the respiratory system. We have learnt in what way air is taken in, functions of the hairs which align the passage, function of mucus, the rings of cartilage present in the trachea. We have learned the mechanism of taking air in. Okay. Then from lungs, where that oxygen is taken or where that oxygen goes. So these are the things that we have learned, and some of the questions based on the topics that we have covered. Okay. Yes, these are the questions based on the topic that we have covered, respiration. So if we look at the second question, this is the statement: during fermentation the pyruvate is converted into 2 carbon molecule and the energy is released. So where does the above process takes place? In yeast. What is this respiration called? Anaerobic respiration. Name the 2 byproducts formed along with the release of energy, ethanol and carbon dioxide. Formula of ethanol is, I repeat, formula of ethanol is CH3CH2OH. So ethanol can be also written in this way: C2H5OH. C2H5, 3 plus 2 is 5, OH. This is 2 carbon molecule because 2 atoms of carbon are present. Okay. So as I said, this slide consists of questions based on the topic that we have covered. Okay. We have already seen this. Yes, you can go through the questions and answers. Yes, this is based on respiration.